Choo choo, mother.
No, Danny. It's getting harder.
Stay away from the summoner!
Hello there.
Previously on Nioh. After clawing his way out of the dreaded London Tower, William, somehow sounding more Dublin than London, broke free from captivity and stepped into a far deadlier world. A brief but brutal tutorial later, he set foot in his first true battlefield, where yokai don't play fair and neither does the game. That journey led to a grim, rain-soaked ship and a hulking nightmare waiting below deck on Ryoki. What followed was less a duel and more a repeated lesson in pain. Chains swung, health bars vanished, William died a lot. But on one final attempt, whether by luck, instinct, or sheer desperation, something changed. A weakness, a pattern, a cheese, and just like that, the monster fell. Now, with his first true victory behind him, William pushes forward, slightly more confident and significantly more dangerous.
How are we, folks? How are we getting on? Steam Train? No Blitz, you know what you fucking did. You know what you did. But if you want, you can have a wee Blitz. I didn't actually turn it off, I'm only joking. People, welcome in. What is the crack? How are you getting on? What is the story? I was lurking earlier when you were playing. How did you get on? How was the rest of your stream? Moon, what is the story? Tell you what, that was a brilliant wedding we were at the other day. But the whole time I was like, Moon's going to show up. Moon's going to show up. I was waiting for you to swan on. I was waiting. I even turned around to Waffles and I was like, no. I suspect she's going to hear. I suspect there's going to be a big entrance. And the whole time I was just sitting, saying to Hook, any moment now. Ready, boobs. Have you played the God Emperor today? No, because I'm Tau. I'm not even Tau, I'm Tau all the way. Because they're the most like Transformers. So I fucking love them. Let's see. He's the real son of the Emperor. No, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, sir. 3 bags full, sir. Freya, welcome on. You be checking on later? No baller. No baller. Ready? All the cool people. That is true. That is true. Did that come up and say Madison for you? Madison. How did you get on with that? Are you Australian? Freya is Australian. That is true. Fight, fight, fight. I wish I wanted to. It was a good night. It was a good night. My voice still hasn't fully recovered from it. Me, Hook, and Annihilator, and Happy Irish were flat out dick dancing and singing. The band was class. It was class. Belter crack. I was there. I was the priest in disguise. That's so weird. because there was no priest. Hook, welcome in. Evening. What's 29 months? Jesus Christ. It was over 2k return for the flights alone. You know what? You should have said, me and Hook would have sold pictures of our feet just to fund it. Because it was a good crack. It was a good night. Danced me wee arse off. That is true. Never left the dance floor. It was belter. It was belter crack. It was a good meal and a brilliant day. Although we did discover something. Beforehand, we had never met Mrs. Waffles before. And you know the way you go on the... here we go. I can never ask that to you. This is pictures of our feet. It'll be grand. It'll be fine. Flemish, what is happening? 9 months. We've made a baby. We made a Twitch baby. There we go. We wouldn't be surprised you turned up a day. You were there in spirit. That's true. That's true. But you know the way you go on the Rare Waffles stream, and he's very, very witty. He's very, very charming. He's very, very funny. And he's, you know, very, very quick what, man? Very, very quick what? Turns out...
Jesus
we had a butt baby. It was a raccoon.
Fuck me.
Turns out, Mrs. Waffles is actually funnier. She was fucking hilarious. And she even outwitted her husband, and we were like, my God, she's even funnier than him. Phenomenal pairing. But belter crack the whole day, the whole way through. The woman who's at Sierra, welcome in. That is true, especially in your case as well.
Lady.
That is true. But it was good crack the whole way down. Food, class, location, brilliant. Just belter the whole time. Didn't realize you'd never met her. She's very, yeah, 100%. No, we'd never met her. She'd come into Hook's chat a couple of times, but never actually met her before. I can't deny that. Alyssa, welcome in. I was lurking your stream earlier as well. You changed the bird camera about. Thank you,
Sorry, we're going streaking through the quad and into the gymnasium. Come on, everybody!
I'm just pushing buttons here. Just pushing buttons here. I've seen new angle. They're up very close now. They are. They're very, very cool. Anybody's not on all such as bird cams and stuff up out their backyard. But also plays a lot of Pokemon and very, very chill kind of vibe games. Very, very good. No, not a problem. Not a problem. Thank you very much for coming on and saying hello. A 60 stream streak. Look at that. Look at that. Look at the love from Hook. Thomas, be more like Hook. Just be more like him. Go. More like him. But it was a good bit of banter the whole day. Fuck, Jesus. I don't mean like that. Actually, I didn't know if that was going to work, and it worked perfectly. Look at all the absolute legends you gave out there as well. Foxtrot, McDemmel. My God, thank you very much. Flemish, it's gone. Don't be at it. Don't be at it. Don't be gifting no subs. You appreciate it, but don't be wasting your money. No, Hook be more like me. Fuck. Like someone listens, sees dog wherever I'm in. Oh, yeah, definitely. The best doggo. But thank you very much for that. Jesus, Flemish, don't be ever feeling the need to gift and subs. Don't be wasting your money on that. You're gonna end up skint. What gifting things? So previously, what?
Appreciate the pity.
Jesus, you sure well good. McDermott, welcome on. Thank you very much. 100 bucks as well. Fucking hell. Thank you so much, folks. These are all well generous. You got 3 hugs off the hook. You got fucking no hugs. Everyone got hugs except for you. What gifting things? So previously, whenever I had it set up, it would pop up for every single person who was gifted a sub. Now it comes up saying who gifted it, and then I'll say the names below to everybody who received a gifted sub. So it's not continuously going over the same redeem over and over again. Flemish has been very generous there, but it's been told to do not be. You know, don't be wasting money. Even just come on and say hello and have a wee chat. That's all I ask. But we had a belter stream there on Thursday night. It wasn't Thursday night, it was Wednesday night. Thursday night was the wedding. Belter stream on Wednesday night there, where we're playing Nioh. Came up against this absolute bastard of a boss, and everyone was like, everyone in chat who'd played the game before was all, this is where I gave up. This guy was where I gave up. And I could clearly see it because I died him about 20, 30 times in. And then, I don't know how I did it in the last run, but I ended up discovering a cheese, and then I went online and I was like, is this cheese anywhere on YouTube? And I couldn't find it anywhere. So I think I discovered a new cheese for Nioh for that first boss. Spendable balances, it's likely your own money coming back at this point. No, not really, because each time Twitch gets 50%. They'd be stealing it. They'd be stealing the money off you, Flemish. You're not you're.
Oh,
she's already in position and
No.
everything. What he says here?
What do you say? Bitch. No. I'm not gonna give you a treat if you call me that. What do you say?
Please. Bitch, please.
Hold on. My daughter just leaving the door wide open. Right, so, doggo, there she is. There's the Wayne. How did you know I was talking about you? What are you doing? Come over to me now. Coming over for a wee treat? Coming over for a wee treat, are you? There's a good girl. There she goes back to her bed. Good Wayne. He's talking to me. I'm talking to you. That's right, ready? Ready, there's your retreat. There you go. Look at her wee feet. I know. She's a good Wayne. Best doggo, don't tell Max. Max can run and jump. Tell Max. Fuck off. So he was the best Wayne. And I'll not hear nothing else about it. A good Wayne. Here she goes. No more. Sierra said, no more for you. Flemish loves you a little bit, but not that much. Thorn is better. No. Is that the one that deep throating your finger? No. I've never had that issue with a dog. I'm the best. Reddy's the best dog. This is true. Reddy's the best dog. He's good at it. Oh, sweet Jesus. I am going to go over to the game now because Flemish has disturbed me and turned my stomach in ways that copious amounts of alcohol could not. See? There we go. Reddy's having a bit of a rough day. Imagine being married to him. Why are you married to Thorn for? I know what you mean, though. He's a wild man, isn't he? Wild man himself.
Thanks for the sub!
Annihilator! There he is. What is happening? Thank you very much for that sub. 27 months as well. Fuck. Good evening, you sexy dancing powerhouse. There he is. Wait, this is here. Actually, I'm just going to show this for a wee second. So we got pictures done. And we have this one here with the lads. There we go. Look at that. Absolute legends, a lot of us. Speaking of funny people, Annihilator, if you ever get to hang about with him, man is belter crack. Out-fashioned us the entire time. Oh, it's a little bit loud. Right. Continue game. Look, there's my dog. There's my other doggo. I've asked them to call everybody Robin Hoos. This is true. Oh, give her the beans, Taka. That's what he shouts. I'm surprised I didn't see more people in that photo booth. I know. But to be fair, we didn't see anybody because we were too busy dancing. And there's video evidence of us, that all of us dancing the Dancing Queen. Well, it's not here. Oh, looking to be, is it? The phone station on the road nearly got it out of me. I was in shock. Oh, it was expensive enough, wasn't it? How did I go back? Maybe I just go on this. No, it's none of them. Status, titles, system? No. How about Lucasina bar chocolate for 5 yo-yo 50? That is true. And what was it? Was 130 for a bag? Can't be as bad as the 98 it cost me to fill my car the other day. Oh my god. That is mental. It's getting bad, like it's getting expensive now. Well, it's always been expensive, but you know what I mean. No, I don't want to go to the Isle of Demons. I've already done the Isle of Demons. But you barely drive it, so it'll last you about 2 months. Jesus Christ. But plus as well, you filled it. I suppose 40 quid would give me half a tank there at the moment, so it's about right.
7 minutes. 7
There's
minutes is
Sama.
all I
He's
can spare
back.
to play with
So
you.
are you. So I installed... Actually, it still looks a bit darker on your screen. I installed a mod to hopefully make it a bit brighter. Right, I don't want to be here. How do I leave? I don't want to return to title screen. Right, I need to find a way to get out of this. How the devil are you? I'm not too bad at all. There's the Vince McMahon strutter himself. I went about a new car today. I was giving Flemish most of the decisions because it's used driving. But okay, right, okay. Normally for 3/4 of tank would cost me about 70 quid. So it's about right. It's still it's still expensive as fuck, but you know. Gold is not unlocked. How the fuck do I go back? I don't want to be in this fucking location. Or sorry, no chance catch him. I did break my brain a wee bit. Hold on, we'll do it again, we'll do it. I went about a new car today. I was giving Flemish most of the decisions because it's used to drive him about 99% of the time. Still, me no speaking of English. As long as I get one, piece of dirt in the car on it, so that's buy a new one. Car's broke, well, what we do, buy a new PC. Seriously, how the fuck did I get out of here? I do not want to go about this again. Take me back to where I was originally. Maybe it's a fucking item. Allows you to quit your mission, return to starting point. There we go. Whatever this thing is. There we go. Basically, I'm letting Flemish pick my new car, so you may as well be comfortable with it. Don't let him make decisions. Jesus Christ, what are you doing? Because I spend 99% of my time driving him about. But why are you letting him decide if you're the one driving? Right, so. Right, so the next missions is Death to Bandits or Deep in the Shadows. Right, so it looks like this is the next one for me then. I believe the bandits hired by those four merchants were defeated, but it seems like I was wrong. Is it? No, it's the exact same island. Just a different mission. Don't let that man buy anything. You'll come back with the new Elgato car. Oh no, it's different. Ooh, it's just from a different angle. Right, okay. I have to remember my buttons now. What's my buttons? That's my buttons. That's my buttons, right, okay. We're sucking diesel now, we know what we're doing. I know what we're doing. I don't know why I'm breaking them, I don't get anything out of them. But how is everyone else's weekend been? Quite enough day to... Oh, here you... Been good, although I am sad that my week is same. I am back to work on Monday as well, and I was off for a whole week, and it's like shite. But it is what it is. Until the next one. But when's that gonna be? When are we getting our next week off? Because we can't burn through all our annual leave at the start. You're a bit of crafty. You're crafty, aren't you? This is true. I'm off for 2 weeks in July. It'll be glorious. Ah, it's not too far away then. But who said so? We'll be glad it happened. I should put that in the cup. Yep, McMillions. It's not about the holidays, but the friends we made along the way. I know. It's once you get past the summer, just all the bank holidays dry up then. Oh, someone firing shite at me as well. Right, come on. Take that. Actually, I probably should get rid of the other one. Where's the spoil? Headshot. To the headshot. The headshot. Could I get this guy as well? I could probably do a bit of damage on him. Not quite kill him though. Ooh, fuck. He went down. He went down like a sack of spuds. He does hit hard though. I have to keep looking out for the wee small green boys as well. I keep forgetting about them. What's this? Bit of money, bit of cash. Bit of dough. Right, okay. Okay. I've seen the RAM prices are thankfully starting to go down a wee bit. I didn't open it from the other side. I like this game, but I never finished it. Got this certain boss and was in the mood to climb that brick wall. Ah, was it the guy on the boat with the two big chains? Ooh, that was a fancy wee move. Didn't do you any good, like, but it was a good wee move. You know, I like it. I like the effort you put into it. Nah, it was after a big cave area. I'm not sure if you know about it. Nah, I've just started, so I haven't a clue. See, it looks like there's an item over there. I have to dash across this gap. No, I can't. I just fall down. Spoilers, there's a cave, for fuck's sake. I didn't know there was caves in this game, and now that I know there's caves in this game, really, it's just completely ruined. Just ruined the whole game, that's it. That's it. I'm rage quitting now. Not playing anymore. Scrap it. Yeah, that's it. That's it. It's all over and done now. The dream is over. It's all gone. All gone down the ship. Why am I supposed to get up there? Ah, there's a bridge. Where's the ladder to get up there? The whole way around you, or these boys are some crack. Hey, I'm gonna take a stone. These aren't getting it back because these are making me go the whole way around here. That your hat's shite. No. That's fucking not. Although, find this thing.
Funny you should say that there, Andy.
Akens, Bouchy, what is happening?
Joining the rob by an accident.
How was the wedding? Phenomenal. Phenomenal. It was belter crack. Really, really good. I don't know where I'm supposed to be. I want to climb up and get that thing. But there's no way across it. I must have to fall down from above. Right, okay. Good crack. Really, really good crack. I was laughing the whole way there. Funny as fuck. Even afterwards, you know, we weren't even badly hungover or anything. So it was good crack. I'd say there would have been some other heads in the morning though. There was some boy, me and Hook were stuck chatting at the end of the night. And Niall was there and he abandoned us. He left us. I stripped down and went streaking. Wasn't at the wedding though. We're fine drunk. Took a fair bit, but didn't sit up. No, we didn't. We burnt off everything. Just danced like freaking Egypts. We were the main lads on the dance floor. Anyone else here wishing so to go past our heads? Not anymore. No, we done right. Like, otherwise we did the dancing tap. I did. I did check out after some comment. I know. We just sat there staring. I was sitting looking going, Jesus Christ, look at the size of this boy's hands. Freaking massive. Oh, that's my move. Fucking copy me. Do-do-do-do. Aye, big paws, aye. The man would have crushed you. And not in an emotional way. I keep forgetting as well, we'll do that pulse thing. Wait, so I didn't get invited to that as well? Didn't get invited to what as well? You were invited to Hook's wedding and I wasn't, so that was the compromise. As Waffle's oldest and most dearest friend, you think I would? I know, but it was because you're too handsome, really. He was afraid that, you know, you'd steal his wife. It's because of the hair. The hair is both your greatest asset and your curse. They're fancy moves. They do not save you from that, though. Look at him. Oh my god, it's Roman Reigns with a spear. And the weapon he drops is a bandit axe. Makes no fucking sense. If your watch trick was higher, you would have. Fuck. You're one they talk. Not too sure. I'm supposed to be going that way, am I? Right, okay. Sorry, my life doesn't revolve around Twitch. Who are we trying to kid? Yeah, it does. It does. But how was Madison for you, though? Game was something like I expected. Expected more anime elements for some reason. No, it is set in feudal Japan, but it's not anime. It's more... It is more Dark Souls-y looking. They're heavily inspired by it. For sure. One you... But your main thing is you have a key. Well, you have a key bar. It's called key, but it's essentially a stamina bar. That is your main thing that you're looking for, apart from your health, really. Because if you run out, you're buggered then at that point. Like. But the same applies to the enemy, which is good. And plus, it's an Irish protagonist. This news art still in gameplay or more. I don't think it's more anime, no. Code Vein would be rare anime. Oh, Nioh, not so much. It's a lot better looking. Like it's a very very pretty game. The new one. That sounds like a baby. Why? What's with the baby? I can hear a wheeling. I thought it was Teddy crying, so did I, and I was like, fuck, Teddy isn't even in my house. Although that was funny when we went over to... we all dropped our cars over in Hooks and he drove. We Teddy had to come out and have a wee chat with us and all. Did he come on? Wee man was telling us all the crack. And then we picked up, and then he was out with Mrs. Hook whenever we came back and picked up our cars. Apparently he was raging that we didn't come on for tea and a biscuit. He called me a prick. You fucking did too. I think it's supposed to be crows. He cried that she didn't stay and have coffee with him. Hey, that wee man doesn't sleep at night anyway, he shouldn't be having coffee. Maybe that's the promise. His coffee is warm milk, but I have chocolate. Do him rightly. That's not fair. There's two yous and one of me. There we go. I'm picking up all these items. I'm not clue what they are. I might check a guide for it. This game, is it you're on about, or is it Madison? Oh, I missed your comment. It's good. I got lost at a certain point and called it. I'm time traveling to the church to find candles. Oh, yeah. Look up the guide for it, man, because that's an absolute nightmare. That's why Madison. Alright. Well, see, now I feel bad. I know I did a coffee date with him sometime when we were sitting waiting for me at the door. Showing me his living room like a wee gentleman. I know, he's wild funny. He has his dad's son. He was sitting telling me about Bluey and, what do you call the one he's on today? He's on about Peppa Pig and all. They are wild funny at that age, so they're just the crack in the chat room. Raise them how Mammy raised us. Manners above all. Doesn't really work. See, as long as they have manners with other people, it's grand. You expect them to be cheeky wee shites with you, though. Oh, that's good. I like him. Fire dog. Jesus. Oh, is that it? Happy days. Mission complete. That's how I used to leave. Oh, happy days. That's a lot easier than the last one. Fire dog equals anime. Oh, what about Pokemon? There's fire dogs in there. I think my daughter's hilarious, but my son's freaking grumpy teenager. Problem is, he's only 6. It'll get worse. It'll get worse, ready? Yeah, jumped on the phone for a wee bit. Couldn't hear shit. Couldn't hear fuck all. Sorry we missed it. That's Waffles' fault. He decided. He knew that you were streaming that night and he's all, you know what, I'm just going to have the wedding then. And we were all, don't do it, Waffles. And he was like, I don't care. Oh, there was none on that one, right, okay. So this must be the next main mission. Now go back to here, right, I don't know what I should be doing weapons-wise. I also don't have the items for it, really. How dare you not bend to my needs? This is true. Very true. You know what? You're right in what you're saying. We'll level up a wee bit then. Yeah. Wee bit of health. Wee bit of skill. That should do nicely. Yeah. Right, okay. I don't even know what level I am. I'm just gonna batter my way through it. Speaking of bended knees, mine has been hurting recently. It's a cowl getting you. It's a cowl getting you. Just put a wee hot water bottle on it, you'll be grand. Fuck, I need to take a wee piss soon. That's when you know you're in trouble. Oh Jesus, the whole ceremony, me and Hook were just sitting there beside each other going, oh, we really need to piss. It's a cat!
A cat clock. Anzo's ways are curious indeed. Even cats speak in these lands.
Am I expected does my character speak Japanese? What the fuck's going on? I don't know what's going on. Yeah, we sank our drink and regretted that. That is true. And we were just at the very end going like this. But to be fair, the registrar was quick. He was quick. What did we ceremony to the flag? Ah, it was adorable. That was definitely a nice spot. Although some boy was going to get hit the next morning. We were leaving the restaurant part, and Annihilator was going to walk out, and this family was going to come on, and they just wouldn't move out of the way. People almost got battered. I don't know what's happening. I don't know why there's a floaty talking cat. But I'll just not worry about it. It was too early in the morning. Well, it's too early in the morning for that, Carol. They were just standing there staring at you. And said, just let us out so you can get on. There we go. We'll check our items and see if I have anything better, because I haven't a fucking clue. Uchi-katana. It's easy for this out. So mine's just 80. There's one there for 107. That's a banded axe. Jesus, it's not going to be any good, is it? Would you organise yourself? Is there any way that they tidy it up now? No, it fucking isn't. Newest. I don't want it by newest. I want it by most powerful of the weapons I can use. I thought this game was rather obtuse. Not in a Souls way. Just not explain shit. Explain something. Everything's like all over the show. It seems to be the most that's still the best thing I have, and I don't know if it was DLC or what. 52. I don't think there's anything particular in there. Rogue armor. Ah, this stuff's better. Although I don't have the stamina required for that one. But I could probably go for the rogue armor or even this one, 33. Yes. The weight exceeds my maximum. Right, okay. Right, okay. There we go. Right, click to sort. Maybe not. Does it sort? It does. Ah, there we go. Well done, ready. Still, I think my one... Oh, no, this one's slightly better. But just for the attack multiplayer, not for anything else. Nah. Oh, shit. Let's stick with what we have.
You were so filled with your own self-importance that you didn't think to question that maybe you might actually die, and here we are. Go well to your grave, Tom.
I didn't die. I
Died
was
poorly.
grand.
Just like you lived.
Oh, Mike messaged me as well when I was away, and he went it was a Expedition 33 orchestra down in London. It was him and James, and Ben Starr was there, and I was like, no! Apparently it's like the second time now he's gone to see him without me. Disgraceful. Disgraceful.
I'm that star. And if
You
you're
are?
anything like me, then you absolutely love.
What is that noise? It sounds like... Oh, fuck. Well. Well. Plummet to my death. Hello, lads. Fuck, dead again. Once at the bar and twice at the dinner table, me and Hook were keeping count of... Oh, that's right, 3 bands required. Jesus, lads. Do you want to count that? No, you don't.
I'm that star. Do anything like me.
Oh, fuck, guy. Good memory, sir. I think you're making that up. That doesn't sound like something I would say. Doesn't sound anything like me. Although that bit was pretty funny. Whenever we arrived, Mrs. Waffles was like, oh, these are all fucking real. And then it made me really, really regret not putting my own name and my Twitch name because everyone's like, oh, Leoric, and I was like, oh, no, it's Joe. No, it's not. Jesus. Fuck you, cunt. I'm just gonna shoot you from there. Realized I closed Twitch and went to the background ASMR mode. Ooh, really? It's fucking weird being called every Twitch name. It is odd, but it's good crack. If I ever meet you in life, I'll struggle to call you by your real name. I called Leoric Joe once in chat, and Hook made fun of me. Happens to me all the time when I meet Horror calls me, and he's known me for nearly 20 years. Aye, but there's times as well where I'm just kind of like, it's whoever's there as well. I don't think my souls are down there. I don't think it was that much anyway, so I'm not really too worried. Lad. Oh, there's a fucking few of them in here. On your knees! Jesus Christ. These boys are brittle. there we go. One of them's done at least. Is my weight limit up or something? The fact I can't get a couple of hits in? I might have to swap out my outfits because I'm getting like 2 hits in and I'm knackered. Wait, what's my stats? What's my stats? Oh, it is my weights. Maybe I'm too fat. There we go. So it's draining my stamina. Right, okay. As I should. Well, Burton. I said them call me Vince, not Flemish, and I tried it once only to go back to Flim. Because I felt weird. I was going to say thanks, Dame, but then I realized I don't know if your name's out there or not. Oh, aye, Hughes, aye. I call me with his old name sometimes. My man was all... and I go surfing. Took me by surprise. Oh, I just hide it. Joe's a lie. The orc is like Madonna. The bit that kind of... Not that annoys me. Not even slightly. But whenever you're talking to somebody, and you say you go into someone's chat, and they say... They pronounce your name in a way that they think's correct. And then they apologize if they get it wrong, and you're all... It's a made-up fake internet name. Don't be worrying about it. They're all, no, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And I was like, I am not offended. Even if you got my real name right, real name wrong, I wouldn't be offended. There we go, it's a lot better. A lot better. That's what I'm talking about now. Thanks, you pointy tits. Yep. I'm a material girl in a material world. That's a lot better. So that's what was wrong with me. I was too fat. I was too fat to fight. What's up here? What's this? What's this? Oh, why did the light quit? Name's Jeff. I laugh because it's like adding AHawk, which isn't ideal for the non-toxin world. Non-toxin world, yeah, true, but... sir, I stabbed you in your sleep, and you had the audacity to not die. Ooh, it's a wee lad. It's a wee lad. Wait, did you not know Tom Hawk's name was Tom? Go on, actually tell me. Go on, actually tell me that you didn't know that. Are you going to pretend now maybe you did know that? I don't worry, but of course I did. It was sarcasm. Ah, but you can't tell when you type it, for fuck's sake. It's just like that scene from fucking Zoolander. Of course I did because I was making a joke. Yeah, but the way you said it didn't sound like you were making a joke. You have to add sarcasm at the end. How are we supposed to do? But you can't type in a tone of voice like. This isn't Reddit, your fist isn't Reddit. See, you thought you were going to get me. But there's another one. There's another one. Ooh, boss room key. I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. You can't type in a tone of voice. You can't. We could make it Reddit. Not with that. It should. I know. It's just you're just half-arsed it. If you had done maybe like a wee fish or something. But no, you think we're all mind readers. I can hear that. I enjoyed that. It's like he sent Annihilator a GIF earlier, and we could hear the music even though it wasn't playing any. But by the way, I was being sarcastic. I had my fun, that's all that matters. Did you, though? Did you? This is where I fell last time. I fell down. Oh, what was that? Oh, shit. Oh, somebody see me, that's what it was. Right, lad. Ooh, I have to try and pick all this up now without activating that. There we go. Job's so good. Ooh. You playing this on PC? I am, yes. By the way, that hotel was dog friendly. Was it? Amazing. I didn't even know. Where the fuck are these bastards come out of? Oh, chip. Stab! The movie. It's all sign outside. Oh, I didn't even know. I could have brought the Wayne. I didn't wee dog in the lobby. Ah, that's true. That's true. We did see the wee dog in the lobby. I just barely spoke to him. Doggo got my attention. This is the way it is. That was just a hairy child. It's a hairy baby. There's not a hairy babies on Craggy Island. Right. It's 10 minutes until the break, but I'm actually going to go now because I need to pass. I'll be back in a minute. Well, I'll go to the Be Right Back screen. I'm going to hide in this cave and hopefully no one finds me. Be back in a second.
When the silence falls, empty throne waiting, something's building in the air, voices rising, the battle lines are drawn to your side, no going back now. Cast your vote of kings, crown the one that rules your heart. Vote of kings, tear the old world apart. Which legend takes the throne? Cast your vote of kings. Soldiers from distant lands, crystals and blades colliding, stealth through shadows, time itself rewinding. The battle lines are drawn, choose your side, history in your hands. Cast your vote of kings, crown the one that rules your heart. Vote of kings, tear the old world apart. Which legend takes the throne? Cast your vote of kings. 7 versus 8, snake versus shine, every memory at stake. Remember when we first believed, gives us strength to prophecy. Now decide what kingdoms bleed. Cast your vote of
Oh, chat, that is a strong opinion to take. I can respect it. Fucking loved me some time splitters too. Warlock. It's just Warlock, isn't it? It is. It took me a while to read that in my brain to comprehend. Well, come on. What is the crack? Flamash is not happy. He's not a happy camper. Now, to be fair, he never is a happy camper, but he's even more unhappy now about it. It was anti-Flamash power play. It really was. That's my next game after Madison. Woohoo! When is he ever happy? Sarah, you typed it as I said it. You understand? I feel bullied. Song was stuck in my head for a week now. Aye, but it's a good song. It's alright. I don't think he was happy on our wedding day. Did he cry a tear of joy? I don't know what this is doing. What was that for? Don't even know. Don't even know. Ooh. Well, I would try it, but there's an axe man there. And he has an axe to grind. I've killed him in it. Does it still count? Is it still okay? Enter hot spring. Look at the wee babies. He didn't even smile, he just looked miserable. I think there's only the MP at this point. Oh, the multiplayer? Right, okay. Nope, no tears, nothing. There was an extracted version from it, the game Homeland, but then extracted, now it's nice standalone. Right, okay. Ah, I love Time Splitters, it was a great game. Right. What did I enter the hot spring forward? Oh, just at the pump. Oh, give me a wee buff. Oh, that's quite cool. I wonder if that's the only one or more of them show up now. Ooh, what's it here? What's this? What's this? Oh, it's another location. Oh, got him. Oh, he would have jumped out of me. What's the name of the game? They had it inside the new strikes. There's someone extracted and now able to play on PC. Very cool. I never played Homefront. What bats? Fuckers. Looks like a bat cave. Batman. I can receive a blessing now. A hunter's blessing. Increases drop rate of materials, warrior's blessing, armor. I think that's kind of the one I want to go for the most experience. Can I level up? Hi, Batman. I think the first one's meant to be okay. Second one, shambles, I believe. Ah, right, okay. Never played it. I remember coming out, but I never played them. I think I can picture the cover with the guy with the balaclava, or bandana over his chest. That's about it. But a wee bit on the string, a wee bit on the ducks. Nope. Let's put a button on the ducks. Oh wait, let's see. That's ninjutsu. The dual swords. Backs the power of your guardian spirit. Maybe that. I do enjoy my guardian spirit. But there was another way over here I didn't go. Oh no, these guys are gonna be back. Fuck. No, we'll go this way. Fine. It's fine. Holy crap. Right, okay. These jabronis. Did you throw a stone at me? That's right, that they changed my stance now, don't they? Just so I can get them. The stances are the thing I forgot. He fell down. He's going to run the whole way back up to me now. This will tell me actually how far away he is. There he is. There he is. No hesitation at all. He just ran for me. I'll run at him. Shit! Fucking bats. No wonder Batman was terrified of them. That's another path. Ready? Could this have been the cave that we were talking about? The Cave of Wonder. Oh, what's the scale about? Can't help me down there, buddy. Actually, I might be going down beside you now anyway, so it doesn't really matter, does it?
My name is Kyobu Masataka Oniwa! As I
Got him.
breathe, you will not
There's one of
pass
them boys.
the castle gate!
And I probably have to fight him. But I'm going to use my spirit on him. That did the job. Nicely job. And there we go. There we go. Sucking diesel now. Yeah, I think so. Didn't get very far into the game. Right, okay. All the roaring, and that's immediately reminds you of that redeem. Right, okay. I love that voice actor should have got paid double what they paid him. I don't even know what they paid him, but he deserves double whatever he got. I've seen a thing online where they were comparing all the different languages, and like the English voice actor for that one bit, that guy went all out. I don't know where that is. I have another one of these with jabronis up here, but I do not have my spirit summon back. Shit! I'm actually have to fight him. Normally, my lips are all fucking chapped. Oh, he is completely different. So I'm gonna take this until I get that guy. Holy shit, what the fuck are you? And I bravely run away. Fuck. Nope, I'm not dead. At what point did they decide the whole wall was going to attack me there? Where did he actually even come out of? Fuck knows. Oh. There it is. Look at him there. Look at me. These arrows? No, they're not. There's a wee path behind him too. Bastard. And there's just the two of them at the one go. And that's what done them. Oh no! You gonna move? Nope. Oh, right, okay. Shit, there's someone behind me. That was sneaky. That was sneaky. Don't like it. Don't like it. Shit, dead again. Oh, I'm gonna kill this thing. Do you need to make sure there's nobody sneaking up behind me though? That's the only thing. Oh, Tomahawk bit the internet. Ian will not be happy. He won't be happy, Bunny. Did I get arrows? I did get arrows. Nice one. Right, I'm going to find who fucking snuck up behind me. This guy. Right, there we go. There we go. There we go. We're sucking diesel now. And you're dead. What were you hiding? What were you buying? I want to make that go away so I can save it for later. We'll have a look at the weapons and see if there's anything else I can upgrade to and from. Why is my phone going mental on it? Well, it's all ticky-tockies. And the Discords. Right, so I'm on 80 there. Sort. Hit it. That's what we'll go for. That's what we'll go for. Right, so it's behind your man. So you could skip him, technically. But maybe it's better to fight him. Fight it out, get the XP. There we go, got him. I think, was I already down here? I was already at this part. Just kind of the next guy now anyway. But hopefully that's him just on his own now. It's a bit more. Oh shit, that's this guy too. Shit, forgot about him. Would he go back to starting position? Oh, he's not. He doesn't even want to fight me. Fair play, fair play. Right, I'm coming. Right, that's a bit better. Right, bit more manageable. Bit more manageable. Here's your man there. Shit. Alright, come on you. Let's go. Ooh, still got me. Good job. I'm liking it. It's difficult. There's a lot of mechanics to remember this. I did keep knocked the fuck out, man. Jesus. It's just a wee bastard that keeps sneaking up on me. It is. It's himself. Jump scare to make me humble. I was getting too proud of myself, wasn't I? I was getting too full of myself. I needed to be brought down a peg or two. What is flopping about the bush? There is your man. There's that wee cunt there.
Language!
Fair play, fair play, fair play. He's haven't been doing it very often, to be fair. You know what? We're just going to go all in. So you kind of annoyed me a wee bit, so I'm just going to do that. I'm going to stop that. Ooh, that's a new weapon. Burton, what's happening? Slice him. I will slice him, and I'll dice him. I'll do everything to him. Descend. I don't want to descend. I'd like to go over and see what this is first. Burton, what is a crack me, sir? Feel like a wild slicing update. So, arrows. Oh, there's a big one. There's a big one. Right, where am I going? Where am I going? Burton, I tuned on the other day and it took me fucking ages to figure out what was happening. I thought, why is his screen upside down? And then I realized it was a challenge you were doing a Zelda where you were playing it upside down like a madman. Fair play, D. Okay. Fuck! Bats. Oh, good, chum, chilling. How's Nioh doing? It's good, I'm enjoying it. Oh. Ah, he lost the head. Just completely lost the head. Why is the ground still fucked? Which way am I going? Hmm? I don't know where I'm going. I'm just going down. Boom, boom. That's right, and you were playing Stellar Blade today, and it was all about them bombs. I felt inappropriate even just looking at it. How was it? Well, what'd you think of the game? Was it good? Young Ninja's locks. Is that hair or lockpicks? Don't know. Oh, look at this boy. Sir. Come on up, big lad. Ooh, he got me. He got me. High class so far. 6 hours in, the combat is sick. Oh, very nice. Nerd on the Rocks, welcome on. How are you getting on? We are very, very badly playing some Nioh here. But you know what? I'm slowly making my way through it. Probably don't have to go this way at all. You ever tried it? Stellar Blade? No, I've never played it. There's another one that was kind of similar, but I think it was more gun heavy. It was First Descendant or something it was called. That one was good. Enjoyed that. But it was also very bum heavy. It's like Nioh apparently. Yeah, near enough. Near enough. After watch you play, Nioh Automata is phenomenal. I'm great, just back from boyfriend's house and chilling for the... Oh, very nice, very nice. It's a good way for be sitting on a Saturday. Oh, I forgot about your man up here. Right, okay. I am doing good. Still kind of recovering from a bit of tiredness from that wedding earlier on the week. But doing okay. Struggling my way through this game, but I'm enjoying it. I killed that guy. Why is he back alive? There's gonna be bats that come out this pile. Net. Oh, help me. And he fell. Which way did I go last time? I didn't go down that way. Went the other way. Went the other way. That's where I brought the big fella down the bottom, but my guardian spirit should be here? Ah, there he is. So we had a bit of a decent stream there the other day where we were struggling against the boss, and then I accidentally discovered some sort of cheese for it. And normally I camembert cheese, but it was very good. Enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. That's the main thing. Oh, there's loads of these guys down here. Shit. Oh, he died. He died! Oh, so your man fell down. Oh, someone's fucking stuff at me. Oh, it's like the Rock and Demon Slayer. Have you finished? Oh yeah, I have. I finished Resident Evil 4 and the DLC. And it was brilliant. Very, very good. Really enjoyed it. The DLC was substantial as well. We did clear it in about 4 hours, but it was a substantial bit of DLC, which was nice. It was near enough B-side of a campaign, you know, like the older ones used to do. What's this lad up there? There we go. Stop. Actually, I haven't played the DLC. Got it a few weeks ago. It's very good. Very, very good. And you just get to see the whole other side of the storyline from Ada's point of view, which is nice. Plus, bums. Bums. What's in here? What the fuck are you? Oh, you're gonna explode, aren't you? You look like a wee explodey bastard. What the fuck's he doing? Oh, I disappeared. Shit! I don't want to break a nose. Ah, it's a wee lad. Look at him. There he is. There's himself. I scared him. Fuck. Right, here. Come on, you. Jobs are good. Alright, so one more day back at work tomorrow. Or one more day tomorrow of being off and then back at work on Monday. Ooh, these things. I honestly have no idea which directions we're going. It's probably over there with all the big fuckers. It seems the most logical. It seems where all the bullshittery will live. Can I like sneak through here? Is this an option? Fuck! There's a few of them, like. Come on, you. Come here. Come here. Come on, we have a wee talk, me and you. Come on away from your wee magic circle of fucking death. I have no more health. Oh, no help. Was it the wrong part? It's not really my fault, is it? I didn't even aim for his head and somehow it exploded. Jobs are good. There, where we're going. There's bullshit over there, there's bullshit there. Fucking shenanigans down here. Right, I'm assuming that's where I'm going. I'm gonna do is go over this wee house first. Ah, fucking bats. I got away from that woman, but what do I do now? What woman? What are we talking about? There's a cave there. Could I just run past him? Apparently I can. Fucking, how many bats are in here? Summoner's candle? I like the sound of that. The boy was on fire. Class. What are you doing? What's happening here? What have you got for me? Anti-paralytic needle. Oh, right. Okay, this is a boss room if I've ever seen one. Look at all this. Look at all this. There's no fucking. They have to kill your man to get I don't like this. I don't like this. There's no what's the word? Ceramic gunpowder for safe travel, salt, whetstone. It summons your spirit guardian. Wind amulet. Power of winds, which is farts. Speed up key recovery. I think that was the one I used the last time as well. Hey, there's no save point, so if they run the whole way back down again. Don't like up. Don't like up. Right. I don't know what all this is. Is it it's a spidery boss, isn't it? It does nothing. Does nothing. Oh, let's go. Looking bullshittery. Oh. Say nothing. Look away. We can save her. We can save her. Fucking Batman. Oh, no. The same tactic that I did last time did not work. I was all, will the cheese still work on this? No, apparently not. What if I could just run past everything? Is that an option? Oh, it's not only an option, it's a very viable option. I don't know where this is, but we're going to do the same. Oh, it's yourself. Out here, right? Okay, I know where I am now. Like, would this have given me a shrine if I defeated them? We'll never know. We'll never know. And then all the bats. Right. No. Fucking bullshittery. Ready? Is this the one you're on about? See, because it didn't give me a second safe zone. I didn't spend any of them key points. Like, it actually didn't give me a second boost to cash them in. Unless I missed it. No, I couldn't see anything. The only thing would be maybe over there. Or maybe after killing the spoil, but no, nothing's here. Ah, no, it's way over there. Fuck. I wonder if she... Would she let me leave? I can't even block it. So it's a roll, I think you're gonna get away with. Ah, that's not good to me. Right, okay. Oh, no. That's wild crack. No, I was drinking the juice. No, that's not fair. That's unfair. Right.
Oh, hello, Papa. I was just about to wonder if you put on my hat. I do not like it. You have made me to look like the silly cows, and I am not a silly cow. I am a strong and agile German shepherd. Keine dumme Kuh.
Jesus. McKinn's, what are you at? What are you at? No, I'm not giving her a treat now.
Excuse me. No. What do you say?
Bitch.
No. No. I'm not gonna give you a treat if you call me that. What do you say?
Please. 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 Bitch. Please.
Ah, well, at least that's back. But I've lost all my points. Thank you, McKinn's. Look what you fucking did. Theo, here. There we go. Here's your good girl. How's that? Don't blame McKinn's for your own mistakes. Slash ban Flemish. It works so well. Right, you know what? Saying that we have our Guardian Spirit back, I'm probably going to try and take out the big guy then and see if that helps me out a wee bit. You've no proof I did anything apart from the activity log that says you did everything. You did all the things. Right, there has to be a second. There has to be a second, like, save point on here somewhere. It's up there. No, because they will just respawn. I played the 5th. He pleads the 5th. Guilty as fuck. Guilty as fuck. That's that guy, dude. Can I, like, sneak past them and get up? I love the way I'm physically turning my head to look around corners instead of just looking where the character's looking. And so there's 2 jabronis there. There's a dead body. I might just call this guy out. Because he will stop appearing once I kill him. Oh, I just flew on that one. Let's go. Pantyhose. Oh no! Right, that's that guy dead. What a drop. What a drop. Demon's Horn. But hey. Well, it didn't really open up anything here. I feel like there needs to be like a something you can cash in your spawns here, rather than having to go the whole way to the top. I got no more arrows. Got no more arrows. Not left for me. At least he won't spawn anymore there now. And there's no real map, so to speak. There's just a thing up at the very top, but it's not helpful in any way. Up there, I think, would make the most sense. I can see one of them wee men. How the fuck do you get up there? If I could lure one of these guys away. He's just another one of them. I'm dead. I got an elixir. Elixir balls. With your legs. With your fucking legs. That's him dead. They will come back though, it's the only thing. Scout armor. Right, okay. How do you get up there? There's a box. And there's a wee man there as well. Wee cheeky bastard. There's like a secret route. It must be up here then, and round to the right. I knew it was coming too. I knew it was coming. It's like a secret. That was squelchy. That was squelchy. Go on here. There's that, but there's nothing else. And then the next bit's just the boss. A mod could buy the redeem them or fund their own points. That is true. That is true. It just feels right. I don't think mods tend to do it very much though. So ban all mods. Just ban all mods in general. It must be around the other side then to get up there. Right, okay. The only reason I'm doing this is because there needs to be a definite way of getting up there. Just Flemish? Right, we're just going to ban Flemish. Happy days. Sounds like a plan. I'd rather you didn't. Unfortunately, I'm not a mod. I can't do it. I wish I could. I wish I had the power, but I don't have a mod ability in my own stream. Crazy. Like, this is a wild run back. To be fair, I don't even think I'm even touching that boss. She's fierce. Why'd you? Come back and get my thing. Right, it's up here, I think. Itchy nose! Yep, this is exactly where it was. Look at that wee bastard! Okay, I'm just getting all the stuff. Oh, dirtiness! Dirtiness! No! Oh, I was fault for that one. At least I know where I'm going. I just don't know how to do it. I'm more worried about where he's going. Boys up to the band. I'll do the Wesker Causeway for 12-hour stream. See, there we go. Incentive. Incentive. They're just wrecking the place now. That's a wee bit annoying. Right, okay. Okay, right, so... this stall. You know where she is. Could you hit her from here? She's up there eating somebody's fish. Let's look at the items. Let's see if there's anything else. I have new items all over the shop, so let's see if there's anything else that's better. Longbow, no. This one's better, but I don't have the stamina for it, so I'm not going to get the benefit of it. Can I have the best one on me now? There's a few which are slightly better. Unlimited ammo. 1.2%. What's that mean? Unlimited ammo 1.2%. Does that mean you get unlimited ammo, or there's a 1.2% chance you have unlimited ammo? Look at me back. Come movements. Lethal. By weight, by newest, by ability, by rarity, by type, by level. Well, I don't have unlimited ammo, so that was a lie. That was a lie. Oh, will you not be moving there, sir?
Finding Leoric.
Ah, sure, there's himself.
Is not shall we say, the rarest gym badge in Kanto. You'll usually find him somewhere making dad jokes, you know?
How dare you, sir?
Yeah, but like you're one of those like shiny ones that everyone has because they were like in a special drop event or
Now,
something.
other
like that,
charms. I didn't realize I picked ones up. What are you? What are you? Sense enemies? Ooh, they're quite good. Ian, what is happening? How has your weekend been going, buddy? Secret medicine fully restores your health. It doesn't do me much good. How's tricks? Doing well. We've made it through the second level now in Nioh, but I'm struggling with this boss a wee bit. Summoner Candle. Special candle summons guardian spirits. It's a rare item made from natural. You know, will that work? Could I do that? Would that get her? Right. Let's give it a go. Let's give it a go. See, here we go. It's not letting me do it. Ah, she got me. She got me. Oh, she's fucking stunning me flat out, so. And this is par for the course. This is how it's been going so far. Barely getting a hit on her, but I think we can save her, so it's okay. That's the way they stopped me. Was it? Right, okay. The first guy as well was brutal too. And maybe I do the summoner candle before going. The first guy was brutal as well, but I accidentally cheesed him. I tried the same cheese on her. It did not work. She is impervious to my cheese. That's our baby, sir. The run back is a bit brutal, to be honest, because I got down there with a whole pile of souls, and it didn't really let me cash them in, which was a bit shit. Unless there's somewhere really obvious I'm just missing. I think part of my issue as well is I am not blocking when I should be. Completely drains her stamina when I block her though. Look at that, she went to give me a hug. And I said no. Oh, no, not got me. No, she's flying. Right, come on, lady. Do it, lady! No, actually, don't do it, lady. Because that means she kills me. Oh, it's Rihanna. She has her umbrella. We're fucked. Ah, shit. I have no more health. I have no more health. Ah, she got me. We got her down to half, though. Yeah, we got her down to half. I'm too bad. But half isn't zero. I thought we banned Flemish. I thought that's what we're supposed to do there. We're not supposed to get rid of that. Coming in here with all that negativity. All the negativity. I mean, for a man who is so positive and loves Resident Evil 6 so much, he comes in here with his grief, and I don't appreciate it. Slack off, my mother. And has the best wife. This is true. This is true. Can't believe that. I'm struggling through this game, having a hard time with it, and he comes in and he slags off my mother. Wild man. Wild man. You think he'd be happier? This is true. And the fact that he gets everything he wants, like he gets away with none of the rest of us get away with it, but a half of what he gets away with. Wild man. Apply to protective cleanses and abnormal statuses? No, that's not true. Oh, you do. You do. Jesus, you're spoiled rotten. Tracks you okay? No. Elixir? Stores health. I already have those. Shinobi box contains surprise number of various ninja tools. Store 30% maximum jujutsu items. I don't know. Don't know what all half this is for. It's just easier to ask for forgiveness and permission. No. I don't even know what the half of this is for. The power of the goblin uses spews flames from its mouth into the area around you. Oh, it's kinda cool. I actually said that to me yesterday. Yeah, you can't at all. Can't at all. Jesus. To be fair, I don't think I've been using my skill points. What I have? I have 14 skill points. I haven't been using them at all. Dual swords. I don't like them sheath ones. Might have to do that anyway, just to unlock further ones. Shurikens. Raw. These are all talismans and stuff. I don't really use any of them. Did you play any of the Souls games? What do you think of Nioh in comparison? It's very, very different. It's good. I'm enjoying it so far. I played Dark Souls, First Berserker Kazan, Liza P, and Sekiro. So I'm enjoying it. How much is the happiness when he's playing Resident Evil 6? No co-op, straight up raw dog with bad AI, 100%. 100%. There's a lot the game doesn't tell you. That's the one thing I will say, but it leaves a lot to your imagination. So I have to clear missions before I unlock any more of these, right? Okay. But this girl's giving me a bit of grief at the moment. But you know what? Fair play there. Fair play there. Oh, fuck.
I'm gonna start grinding. I'm locked in. I'm locked in. I'm locking the fuck in. I took a nap.
That couldn't get out of the way fast enough, that one. No. No. I don't think I'm getting locked on Tomahawk. I wish I was, but I'm not. Ah, shit, there we go. Anything else I can unlock here? I can't level up anything because I don't have any more points. Make offering? Boons? Let's click DLC. Some of us are. I do have them Amaretta items. I could maybe pop a few of those, see how we get on. Items are not necessary for this boss. It's really about hitting her when her opening is there. Yeah, yeah. I am just shite at it though, that's the only thing. Small spirit stone gives you... Right, so 14 of those gives you 100. I know what, leave them for now. Leave them for now. Lurk is great at hitting people's openings, so hey, it's how babies are made. I hate you with every fibre of my being. You hate everybody and everything with every fibre of your being, so the problem is now, Flamash, you know, it doesn't mean anything anymore. It's not real hate, because you hate everything. So technically, you love everything as well, just like you love Resident Evil 6. Not at all, you got pretty far in the first few attempts. Oh, thank you. I don't hate my wife. Well, you don't hate her, but you don't buy her cheese boards, so, you know, what? Where's the love? Where's the love? You don't hate Ready Crash? Not yet. Give him on it. Why is this word's ever seen? I'm quite with. I despise Burton. Burton's a lovely man. Feelings mutual. I despise Bird, hate that man. I'll drive them and give him audio equipment. That's how much I hate him. I loathe you entirely. My God, Flamash. What's the matter with you today? You're just in a bit of a mood. I think I'm missing something here. What are you? Titles? What titles do I have? Key user. Happy days. Item shortcuts. No. Fine, I'll take Burton then. Eek. Only joking, I like all of you. No, you've hurt all our feelings now. Shit, she got me. She got me. Ah, we're dead. We're dead. Even me? We're all AI. Could never hit you. Then why don't you play Monster Hunter with? Why don't you play Monster Hunter with? Who would hit you? I need names and numbers. Give Flamash like 3 seconds. That's not like fun. Oh, I know. But you know what? This is the whole fun of the games. It's getting a bit better each time. I'll play it even though I hate it. Monster Hunter? Yeah, you will. Because I hate Monster Hunter. How could you say that? In front of Happy Irish and everything. You're going to make him an unhappy Irishman. Check it with a rusty spoon and play that game again. Fuck, coming on here with all that negativity. My God. I would never ask you to do that. No, but just play Monster Hunter. You don't have to castigate yourself. It's a bit dramatic. Can we ban them? Banish them both to the void. There's a check. Where's this checkpoint? Because I couldn't find it earlier. I was up there, I was up round the back. I wasn't here, but maybe I missed something. Fucking bats. No. It's all the way back. Ah, right, okay. Ah, if it's too far back, there's probably no point, like. You can better die now. But what if we didn't die? What if we didn't? What if we beat her? Eh? What if we beat her? Wouldn't that be something? Then it proceeds to die straight away. Oh, she turned, she turned. Ah, she got me. You know, it's not the worst way to go. You know, if I went like that, I'd be happy. Be happy. I'm shit at Monster Hunter though. You need to jump down somewhere in the beginning. Only way you can access it. I'll tell you next. I know, no bother. Wait a sec. I'm in ad hell. No! Damn you ads! You know what I'm gonna do? I am gonna call back my dog. Gonna call back my dog. Call back. There we go. There we go. Like, maybe a different guardian spirit might be. No. Change guardian spirit. Oh no, the one. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Yeah, use your spirit attack when you can. So I might just build up my spirit attack. Sir. Oh, look at him. Coming down. What a crack. Let's go. Bum, 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 bum. The slide's up there. Look at him. Look at him being all Rico Suave. Right. Right so. Right so. Oh. He's away. He's away himself. Go to your left a bit further. There's a platform beneath. To my left, right. Over that way then. I am... Butt back, butt back, butt back. No. No. Right, I'll stand here. You point me left or right. Just because it will be very, very handy to have another one. Yeah, forward. Straight. Oh, right, right. Okay. Cool beans. Oh, there. Is this what we're talking about? I didn't go this way. Yep, right, okay. Also didn't fight whatever's in here. Yeah, you could just run it. Ah, right, okay. I'll do it next time. You can run to us. We got everything you need. Hit and run against her too quick and... Wait, what was that? Hit and run against her too quick and get in and out. Yo-ho, because she recovers quick. Right, okay. One go. There we go. Right, so there's a wee ladder there. Just gotta run on through. Run on through! You'll never find me. You'll never find me. Woohoo! There we go. Shit, there's one behind me, dude. Fuck. Lad? No! You dirty wee her, you. Will you? No, not. There we go. Right. Let's try this one again. Oh, almost. Oh no! I don't know if you found out, but you can choose finisher moves in the menu. I did not know. Where did he go? Oh, did he fall? Oh, I fell down. Kick down. Oh no. Finisher moves in the menu. Ah, I did not know this. I don't think I have many of them though. I don't have much. Yeah, those. I don't have much to choose from. Yeah, no problem. Good luck. It's a tight wee platform for this boy. Lad. I'm gonna die loads. Unless I just lift that and then go down here. Oh shit. You followed him? You just fucking shit at me? That just brings you straight down there, right? Okay. Come on. Come after me. Come after me. Come after me. Come on. Go. You got me. It is thank you for the tip though, it's a lot closer than where I was. Where's that ladder? Oh, it's there. Had to figure out where exactly it was. So have you played all the Nioh games? What's your view on them? Right. Let me sort out my items before I go in here and get murdered again.
The bad guys are in there.
That is true. Annihilator, you are not wrong. Church sword for suicide ritual? No. No.
You should be applauding my professionalism.
That is true. Ninja tools. Someone's a guardian suit. Attack enemies for a short period of time. Ooh, I could use that. Only played this one so far. Not finished it. Pretty far, but burnt out. I'm now playing RE4 Remake. I feel so. Ah, amazing. RE4 Remake. That's the last game we played as well, and loved it. It was brilliant. All the systems on it also runs perfect on Steam Deck. You're speaking my language. Steam Deck is my baby. Right, you know what? Nope. We're going steady. We're going steady now. It was handy that the spirit animal attacked for a wee 5, like, but he doesn't really do much. Ah, stop eating me. Would you? I feel like I blew my load too quick on it. Oh, that's a new one. Well, there we go. That was neat. No, I might bring him back. I might level up a little bit. Call him back. And I'm going to start using a lot of my spirit stones. These are 10-2 samurai points. Should I be using these as well? And so have them spirit stones and the bigger ones, and I'm just going to level up a wee bit. Yeah, those are for skills. Those enemies and all. Ah, right, okay. To learn the mechanics. I really should do that. I didn't want to spoil anything for me, so I just kind of went in completely blank with it. You're right. Yeah, it explains very little to you. I mean, there is a tutorial and that goes through like the pulse and stuff for you. But apart from that, not much else. Let's see what this gets. We probably get me a couple of levels, something at least. Vex key. And so I can get 2 levels and something. You can use them all at once, right? Okay, I was just doing it one by one. That goes skill, or no, skill. What does that give me? It gives me Key Pulse, Samurai, and it gives me Jitsu Power, but also melee attack +1. Yeah, let's go for that. Let's go for that. That looks good. Yeah. Oh, I think I have another weapon there I can actually equip. It's 95. This one. Okay. And then if I do... Order by type. Right, okay. Whitestone? Pushes familiarity with a weapon. Simple rock, perfect for throwing. Should I be using that for when she's flying up in the high? Or maybe just bombs, just fucking fire bombs at her. Fire amulets, I haven't used any of them yet. Return your starting point without losing. Oh, right, okay, okay. Elixirs. The longer you use a weapon, the more familiar this increases the stats. Right, okay. Rod, what is happening? How are you getting on? Fully restores your health, but I feel like that's not going to restore if I use it. Right, so you could just use all. Okie dokie. Learn skills. Right, I can't learn any more skills yet. I have 15 skill points, but I can't learn anything. Let me dual swords. Because I have to clear missions first before I can really do them. Skill customization. Nothing really yet. If you go down a bit... Oh, can I still... Ah, there's more. For fuck's sake, I didn't even see them. High stance only. High stance only. Mid stance is what the one I use mostly. Right, happy days. I haven't seen any of these. Low stance only, mid stance only. Rushes forward and swinging 2 swords. Hold that one. Guarding. Ooh, that's quite good. And then dodging. Happy days. I don't think I learned any other moves, those apart from them. I'm just gonna wreck this boy now. Only because he annoyed me. Rod, what is the story? If you go down a bit, look up about 10 minutes ago. Would be nice, would be nice. Yeah, he's gone forever now. Gone forever. He's already dead. Joffrey, Ray, thank you very much for the follow. Appreciate you. Also appreciate all the hanging out in the chat and the advice. I really, really need it. Welcome on. Oh, he goes behind them, right, okay. It's the key pulses that they master next, I think. Yeah, if you want me to stop, just say so. I know it can be annoying. So no. This game doesn't tell me anything. Time for sleepy. Alyssa, thank you so much for coming on. I will enjoy the rest of my night. I appreciate you. Thank you very much for coming on. And being an absolute legend. Right, come on. Come on, Betsy.
Oh. No.
Thank you for the Tangia. Flamosh. Oh, he still got me. He still got me. Firefox. Firefox. There, am I right? So that guy's just apparently dead now. You're next. Stand back. Oh, that was just there, right? Okay. Cool beans. Ooh. Ooh. I think Saxon was playing so well, but I don't remember anything about the game though. Yeah, if you like Souls-like or Diablo, the items are very, very Diablo-ish, and I think that's what's throwing me a lot at the moment, is I don't know which items are good or bad, I'm just picking things up. I did make the mistake though of being over-encumbered at one point. Well, I wasn't realising why my key wasn't doing me even for a couple of hits. Yeah, mixed Souls and Diablos. Yeah. I'm on you, you brute. Come on. No, I'm not stepping into your weird like, little pervert circle. Except for there. There I am. There we go. Well, to see people go through it and eventually win. You want to see what I did last. You with that first boss, the guy with the two big metal testicles. I kept dying to him, and then I accidentally discovered a cheese and just destroyed him. Chatwin was ignoring the game. I think a lot of people are like that because... well, give myself more health. Stamina affects life and how much you can carry. I don't really care about my carry weight at the moment. Or will I invest more in my damage? Oh, good man, whatever, rock. That is true. That is true. Rod, actually, you'll enjoy this one. I bought Dragon Quest Builders 2 again. And started playing that and really enjoying that again. That gives me a lot about life. I don't use magic, so... Well, I don't use magic yet, so I don't have to worry about it. Skill. We'll go skill. Go skill. Offline leveling, this is the way. Time to XP farm. Yeah, potentially. That's what PCP is for, Super Saiyan mode. Fuck. We're gonna give ourselves more health in real life. See, that's the problem. In real life, when you level up, your health goes down and your wisdom also goes down. All stats decrease. E and life are good choices. Ah, right, I went skill. Oh well, the grand. That's called cheating. I'm sick of leveling up. So am I. But it keeps happening every single year around the same time as well, too. Keep leveling up. Can I respect? Just in life in general? Be a good idea. Let's put your points on skill. So, actually, can I see my status? So I went for skill, because that apparently gives me more damage with my dual blades. Come on, fuck it, we're run. We got everything we need. I'm gonna dip my toes and going back to the Dragon Quest series. The RPGs look fun. Oh, was it 11? Was one of the more recent ones? But the Baldur's one's quite good. I played it before and got really on it, and then I just had a wee notion for it the other day. I was on Flying just one and he was playing that Pokopia, you know, the new Pokemon game, and I was like, you know what, this is like Dragon Quest Baldur's. From a streaming point of view, we don't get to see your genuine progress. Well, that's true. That is true. How do we know you didn't mod the game and make it look like you leveled? Right, so I have my thing ready. Go medium stance. Send across Cherry Blossom. High stance, mid stance, or what do you hold RB and press B? But these are my finishers, aren't they? Press Y at the end of the combo, that's my kick. Demon Thrust. Where we get the 1.5, 2.5, and 3.5 ones? Oh, is that the kind of remasters? Very good, Ian. Is that what you're thinking after Final Fantasy 12? Oh, she just whooped me that night. Probably not for stream, just for my own time. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Progress of beating the bosses in new areas, looking around the areas. Last stream, a handful, boring as fuck. Especially, I think you mentioned that with Dark Souls 2, where you have to kill an enemy 12 times to stop them respawning. If I remember right. Yeah, I think a lot of the time the game is kind of secondary to, I suppose it depends on the type of stream as well. Like if you have someone that maybe is more competitive, or you know, the way Mike would do the speedruns and stuff, like it's both the streamer and the stream then at that point. I was tempted a few times with speedruns, but I was like, I don't even know any game well enough that warrant me doing a speedrun. Yeah, 12 lips. 12 lips, they permanently clear an enemy. Mental. Nope, she got me. I think I have to just concentrate on not dying. I think that's where I'm going wrong. I'm not concentrating on not dying. And this is going to sound very technical, but I think it's the dying in the game that's killing me the most. Ah, fuck, I knew she was gonna do it too. Ah, she got me. She got me. Right, come on. Let's go, Betsy. Yeehaw. Nope, she got me. She got me. She got me. Oh, I was doing a lot better there that time. Someone described the other day, it's either gaming the stream or streaming the game. Yeah, very true. It's letting people don't understand it exists sometimes. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Like when someone described streaming the game, you're a chatter, first and foremost. Someone's competitive, you stream the game. Yeah, that's true. It's very true. Maybe I mix them up. That range attack, it does hit hard. It does hit hard. And I can dodge it. I just have to make sure to dodge it. Makes sense. I haven't checked out this version, but I've beaten 1 and 2 on the NES. The other one was on the Switch before the remix happened. I think they're very, as far as I'm aware, they're very loyal to the original games. It's just like graphical updates. Fucking bats. You just can't abandon it, right? Okay. That can happen. Well, you're doing loads of them today. Okay. Ooh. Ah, crap. Nope. Ah, she got me. We're going steady. She got me. Freed from this mortal coil. I love the AoE on that. La 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 lacrima. I was messaging Hook about it the other day as well, and I was talking about how much I struggled with the previous boss. And he's all, is it one of them ones? Is it like a skill check? Is it like Viper in Kazan? Is it like a proper skill check and one of the more difficult bosses in the game? No. One of the easiest apparently. And I'm starting to see that. But I do see a way around this one. There's Vector. Unless it's a phase 2, in which case I'm just completely hammered. Oh, the stamina was drained, they fuck there. Fuck. Oh, there we go. Right, she's flying. She's flying. Oh, I kind of went at an angle on that one. I didn't really get out of the way. Oh. I don't have any more health packs left, so she gets me, I am fucked. Deep concentration! Nope, nope. I knew she was gonna go for that one too. She's all there to herself. Ah, she got me. She got me. Hate it when that's forced on you. That's why I never played Dragon Quest. So grindy. It's like an early 2000s nightclub. Sounds a good time. Usually it's fine when grinding, but to the point where yeah, I know. Sometimes it's a bit of a nightmare. That's why like a lot of the remasters for the Final Fantasy games where they give you that like speed up. Good try, but indeed. Yeah, when you're locked down, things went swell. Have you a death counter? I do not have a death counter for this one. I don't think my OBS could handle the incredibly high numbers that it would make. I did the first stream of this on Wednesday, and I just never even thought to put on death counter. We're a content community, we can handle it. Dragon Quest VII, which is my favourite post-game content because the game it's not 20 levels higher than you had been to beat the game's extra or final non-extra boss. I do love games with them kind of mental kind of challenges, lads. There we go. There we go. I just took the time with it. She's not going for a third attack quite often. She's just doing the two. So I'm in the third one, I know to hit her back. There we go. Oh, fuck, right, okay. Yeah, she got me. She got me. Grinding is really viable in this game, though. But you can do it with skill. I'm getting close with her. I'm getting close with her. I'm not complete. You know, it doesn't feel completely impossible, is what I mean to say. This boy's having a hard time though. Like every single time I come down this ladder, I murder him. So he mustn't be having a great time with it. To be honest, I don't think she's as overwhelming as the first guy. He's loving it, I'm sure. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Getting a little face spit off him. Sure, she seems more flashy, yeah. And that's the whole thing. Like, a lot of people get frustrated with Souls games, but it's learning the moveset. It's like if you ask the internet, his favorite fight ever was against Ozma and Kazan, and he doesn't hate it at all. Oh, I walked on that one. Why didn't I walk that one? Right, that was a mistake. It was a sexy mistake. Whoa, that was cheeky. Go. And then there's always a thing as well when you get near the end of it and the boss's health is getting low and you get greedy and then you just fuck it up for yourself. Which I do all the time. See, I was almost getting a wee bit greedy there. I was like, oh, well, I'll just keep going, we'll just keep going. Thank fuck I didn't, because she just was going to nail me there on that one. Oh, she got me with that one though. Got me with that one. Oh, really got me with that one. Ah, she got me. She got me. Yeah, Japan don't play it. It's actually all the way they do. 100%, 100%. RE4 was fairly toned down compared to the original. And like, in terms explicit, yes, that's true. You got this, let's go. Almost, it was very close that time. This is the one with the breath fresheners. A punishment. Whee! The excitement got him. It did. So close that time, this is true. The temptation, actually, you know what I might do? I might pull back my Guardian Spirit so I can... Like, it's not a huge amount I'm losing. I'll pull back my Guardian Spirit so I can actually buff him up, or I can get my move ready so it's there when I need it. Because it doesn't charge when I'm in there with her. You need to take the boons the game gives you. What boons? What are we talking about? I like the spirit pack. Alright, okay. I get you. Benson? Benson who? Ben? What do you mean? Wait a minute. Ben? What's Benson got to do with it? What are we on with? Is this a hipster thing I'm not going to get? He's baiting us. He is a masturbator. What? Benson Boone. I'm not a hipster. Current events. Benson Boone, singer. If he's after John Bon Jovi, I don't know who it is. You got some tunes? See, I'm too old. I'm too old for that shit. I'm too old for that shit. Right, so we have that charged up. Nicely job. I might equip... by type... Might equip this. I don't think it recharges. That's the only thing. Hop galore, I know. I don't think that recharges, but you know what? It might come on a wee bit clutch. We'll see. He's too popular not to have heard of passively. I know of Taylor Swift. The only Boone I know is Ed Boon from NetherRealms. He made Mortal Kombat. That's a low bar. Eric loves playing things like the foxes and wind you up. He does. He does. About time he played Ghost of Tsushima and you want me to murder all the foxes? Right. Here we go. Oh, right, okay. Oh shit, she got me good. Let's sing Boone in unison, up his chances. Thank God I didn't use my health things for that one. Look, that one was brutal. I was like, I'm not going to use my abilities straight away. I'm not going to use my abilities straight away. I'm going to hold out for when I need them. No, I needed them straight away. She got real. She got real. Because I didn't use... I'm hoping I still have my Guardian Spirit. Bad creatures they are. If they lock in, they lock the fuck in. Grind them. I took a nap. Oh, man, it's starting to hurt. I don't think I got it. shit, right, okay. Let's go. Maybe she's gonna go for it. Fucking knew it. Right, we're locked the fuck on. Let's go. No, we're not. We're ready tonight. Oh, crap. Crap, 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 crap. Yeah! Ah, fucker. This will be the game you hope has like 3 bosses in it.
You were so filled with your own self-importance that you didn't think to question that maybe you might actually die, and here we are. Go well to your grave, Tom.
You're right, Banstar.
Die poorly.
100% right.
Just like you lived.
I'm in a danger of repeating myself, but give her the beans, Taka! Well, that video. Banstar's a bit of a hero here. We love the man. This is as far as you got yourself. I thought that the last boss was as far as you got yourself. Who the fuck is he? Banstar? He is Clive Rossfield or Kazan. He's a voice actor. And he's wild funny. How many times did I mention him? Probably quite a few know me. And handsome. Okay, ironic is it? No. We actually quite like Banstar. 175, that's how many times I've mentioned him on stream. The count is accurate. I have it in my backlog, Death playing. Kazan, the first, if you like Souls, like the first Berserker Kazan's phenomenal. It's linear, but it's good. I need more arrows. Kazan's underrated. It is, and the studio has recently been closed down as well. Castlevania Area of Shadow. What the fuck? So underrated, they closed the studio. That was due to the underperformance of the sales, though. Clamosh, yeah, cunt. So many wanted to get the right one. Great one. But a good game, making it underrated. Oh, fuck. Right, we have no stamina. We're dead. We're dead. Sorry, we're just at the bottom of the ladder. That's not too fine. Loving the line of bankruptcy. I watched a video about them. Nioh kind of saved them. Right, okay. Even if the game got Game of the Year these days. Oh, yeah. Do you remember... Was it Hi-Fi Rush? Like, the game came out, was critically acclaimed, even sold well. And so Microsoft's like, close the studio. Yeah, Hi-Fi Rush did really, really well, and it was a brilliant game too. And they're just like, meh, close studio. Why would you do this, Microsoft? Ads incoming. If you go through the credits for Rockstar Games, especially, you'll see how many people were brought in just for parts and weren't working there by the time the game got released. I know. Close it all. Keep having popular and successful games. Tomahawk, you're right. You should do it. You're in charge. You're in charge. You killed Arcane. Oh, they did. They did. We need games. It's just to reset the video game industry. Games like E.T. Wild man himself. Love Dishonored. Oh, I know, I know. Oh, thank you very much for that gifted sub. You absolute legend. You didn't have to do that, but thank you. Yeah, but they would think the kind of game would work on the makers of the Merchant Sum. I know, I know. Hook, you are a gent. Thank you so much for that. So now you don't have to worry about the ads. Fuck you, ads. I don't take ad breaks as much as I should. I just let it run the 3 minutes every hour, and I just batter on. To be fair. You know what, I'm just going to go up here. I'm going to get all my health back, and then I'll go down and fight him. I think if I find more of those wee green guys, it gives me more health these every level. But to be fair, when she does wipe me out, it is pretty much just straight up murder. I could go for another wee level, so I just don't waste it then. How much do I get every whip about? I just really need 1,000. That's me. Castlevania is a game mechanic I like, where you keep kicking a specific monster's ass and eventually it drops a soul. You use that power. It's like throwing a spear. One is a water blast, and you can use them as much as you want, but they cost mana, which auto refills faster, which you pick apart. Right, okay. Yeah, it's a game I think about every day. It's never really got into Prey as well. Yeah. There's so many good underrated games. Days Gone was another one. You go back to Star Wars and stare at us. What? Thomas, you do as you're told. You do not talk to the Sierra like that. She's the favourite. Because she doesn't come on here and be mean. Days Gone was great, yeah. Oh, forgot about the sweet fucker. Right, let's go. Smash me. I'm playing Jedi Knight. Ooh, is it, which one's Jedi Knight? The Knights of the... Jedi Knight? Because Hook's gonna play the Fallen Order game soon. Scoring games is so... It is, because it's everybody's own preference as well. But, I mean, there is people I would look at online and think, oh, I like... This guy is very similar taste to me, so if he likes a game, generally I'll like it. But yeah, it's completely subjective. I just wait till he comes back over to me. You start embracing AA and 6 out of 10s. 6 out of 10 is still good. And that's the thing about it. 6 out of 10 is a good game. Fallen Order, I'm playing. Oh, right, okay. But I keep calling it Jedi Knight. Well, horse, how's the form? Dean, what is the story? How's the head? Like when I call Mr. X, Mr. T, I pitted fool. I pitted a fool walk around RPD. Ah. I could bump my health up a little bit. Bump my health up a little bit. Let's go. Let's go. Oh, dirty screen. Dirty screen. Thank you, Tomahawk. It's DLCs. People get all annoying in the games, like when you take a game, even though most of the people don't, doesn't mean that you're wrong. It means that you're being able to find some joy. Yeah, that's 100% true. There's loads of games I play that most other people aren't that interested in. How much did you drink at Waffles Red? Dean was flat out. Dean was flat out. What are we doing now? Thorns barking. Ruff. Ruff. World Republic dislikes fast travel mechanic in Dragon's Dogma. I think it's genius. Yeah, but you don't have to use it if you don't want to. Like, there's fast travel in loads of games, and like things like Red Dead, I won't use it because I prefer to jitter about. I see Dean was the Dean of drinking. He was. There's some games that are just bad, and it's agreed upon, like RE6. No, RE6 is phenomenal, and we all love it, and so do you. The problem is, unlike Tomahawk, you're not a real Resident Evil fan, Flemish. RE6 is different. The problem is, it's also a me problem too. Yeah, you married him. You married him. You lost it. Witcher 3 is the same, but it's a good balance. Yeah. It's handy. In The Witcher 3, I didn't use fast travel for the main story quest, but see, when I was side quests, I would use it. Fun fact, Resident Evil 6 is actually the highest grossing Resident Evil game until 9. Is that true? Because if it is, that's fucking brilliant. Super contract. Yeah, I love it. My favorite part is when they came to Dead by Daylight. Really saved the franchise. Yeah, Resident Evil was failing until they did that. They needed to do it. Be able to experiment with this. Yeah, happy days. Red Dead Redemption 2, Spider-Man. 0 fast travel for me. Right. Let me sort my equipment. Well, I'll actually see if I have any other items I can use. Right. I think that's the best weapon I have. And I know you can use... You can actually use 2 different weapons, but I couldn't be bothered changing my weapons halfway through a fight. Order by type. Order by level. These are not ordered by level. But this one's a lot heavier, isn't it? No, it's not. It's lighter. Ah, but I don't have the stamina required for it. That's why I didn't use it. Yeah, they're after MVP games these days. Yeah, they are. They're not taking any risks with them. That's a problem. Would you play a game where you're a ghost of a dinosaur scaring the shit out of people? You know, Monster Hunter? Or Monster Hunter? That's atrocious. Terrible UI, terrible movement in combat, terrible story, zero redeeming qualities. Oh, you on about Fallout? Yeah, I agree, Fumosh. There's certainly choices on, but they've hard to patch these days. You would 100% play that game. Even ignoring RE6 of the game. It's just a bad game. You can tell he's vibrating in his seat right now. He's all... They keep saying it's a good game and it's annoying me. Urgh. Everybody wants to be Fortnite. And yeah, and they want the success of Fortnite. But I don't think very few of them are going to get it. Apex Legends, I think, came very close at one point, like, but Fortnite just appeals to the masses and they're constantly evolving. The Dino Crisis and harass Capcom to make... I bought them. There was a sale recently and I bought them for like a couple of pound each. See the toughness, damage reduction. That's all about button weight and stuff.
Tell me what you want.
Treat. Bitch.
Oh, excuse me?
Oh, thank God you did it then, so in the middle of a fight.
What do you say?
She's not even here.
Bitch.
No.
Not even here.
I'm not gonna give you a treat if you call me that.
I know, Dino Crisis will be good.
Please.
They shouldn't be trying to make a Fortnite, they should be...
Bitch, please.
Yeah, they should be... exactly, it's like... I know when Sandbox, the guys that work in Sandbox now, they probably went to their supervisors and Ubisoft and said, oh, we have this great idea for a really good turn-based RPG, and they went, no, it has to be the exact same format as every other Ubisoft game. And then when they went off and made Expedition 33, they're probably kicking themselves. Yeah, I hope whoever turned that down got sacked. Days until since we got Dino Crisis. I don't care about new unique days, just make a good game. Leo! With the way for the doggo. Oh, there she is. There she is. What you get, Wayne? What you get, eh? There's a Wayne. There's a puppers. Good looking game, shit game. But yeah, and it's the same thing. It's like climb the tower, unlock the map. Climb the tower, unlock the map. And it was great in Far Cry 3. And then they just did it for everything then. Buy the DLC, it's true. How many live service games flopped? I know, it's very few of them have made it. They're the ones that have made it have made a considerable amount of money, but they're few and far between. And look at the amount, like look at Concord and all that carry on that came out and it just flopped immediately. Right, okay. I was just thinking about Concord. The reason Marvel Rivals is doing well is because the IP... Yes, because it is very much Overwatch. Like, even a lot of the abilities is just Overwatch. Here's Sackboy Live Service instead of, you know, sticking the great games. Like, you know... the bit that annoyed me about... This is a bit of a rant now at the moment, but the bit that annoyed me about Sony is when Microsoft was buying Call of Duty and Sony were proper kicking off about it. It was all going through the courts and there was a whole big... You were just like, you have so many really good first-person shooter IPs. Go and bring something out for like Resistance or... What do you call the other one? Killzone. Go on, I want a new Killzone game. Bring me a Killzone. Overwatch is also good, yeah. But it was slower paced Overwatch. Even a lot of the moves were just direct copies. It's now evolved into more of its own thing. But it was very much Overwatch. Just make new entries. I know. Because there's been pushed out my throat for years. Yeah. After Endgame, I kind of gave up on watching the Marvel movies. I just couldn't keep up anymore. Paladin's a good alternative. Yeah, I know. That's the problem, isn't it? Track's okay. Speech Flames. Flame Boy. You know what? Let's fuck a few firebombs at her. Yeah, big fan of Marvel, but as Leork just said over the time, Endgame couldn't. Yeah, and even at that, they built up this massive storyline, and it came to a climax, and it was great. And then after that, it was just like, I don't know what to do now. And it was the exact same for Final Fantasy XIV with Endwalkers. What's this do? Oh, crap. I got handed on that one. Ah, crap. I need to lock on a wee bit better. I was chatting too much and I've forgotten all of my controls. Shit, she got me good. She got me good. Enjoyed the chat, correct? Jane, I forgot Leark was fighting this boss. So did I. I went in it there now. I was like, I forget the moves now. It seems to be a predatory free to pay. Yeah, I know. You guys are the shooters. The finals was great. I enjoyed that. That was a good crack. What the fuck? What the fuck? Who is Leork? Is that what you're writing? Is that what you're writing? Never heard of him. Well, that was the funny thing about the wedding, is everyone kept calling me Leork, and I was like, oh, it's Joe. Just call me Joe. Fine. Call me by my real name, not my fake internet one. General AI is here. God damn it. You walked in and Mrs. Waffles shouted, "You're real!" Aye, that is true. Oh, fuck. Concentrate what you do. I've lost it. I've lost any of the skill that I had for it. Where are you? Where are you? Oh, still got me. Forgot that move. Forgot that one. It's not that funny, love. Oh no, I've got it. Right, what's happening? Give me a wee second. I'm in the middle of the boss here and see what will next. What will it? What is happening? How was your stream? Nah, we're dead anyway. Sweet. Sweet to the beats. Loud noises. Right, what is the story? Welcome on, Raiders. What were you playing? What you buying? Some Guild Wars 2, was it? Thank you very much for choosing me for your raid. Welcome on. For anyone who don't know me, my name's Nioh. We are playing a bit of Nioh for the first time at the moment and struggling quite badly with it. But enjoying it. It's a bit of crack. It's a bit of crack. He was sent here to hug everyone to hunt for John Connor, who shagged. Who shagged what? He shagged his man to create the resistance leader. This is true. It's a true story. One day, finally got starting Guild Wars. Never played Guild Wars. I was always tempted. It was always I was in the World of Warcraft camp. It was day one player. Loved it. Only really fell off last year. But loved the movement tech. Pathy main. Ooh, very good, very good. But anybody that reads into me also goes into my Hall of Fame, so give me a wee second. There you are, Rebel Bear, glowing in green. You absolute legendary. Anybody in my chat that's not following Roar as well, give him a wee follow, fellow Northern Irish streamer. And signed as a pound, playing through Guild Wars 2 at the moment. So we're going to go back to the game now. See if I can get murdered once more. What is that noise? Oh, it's them. It's them. I'm going to call back my Guardian Spirit, because I'm going to have to get him back up again. Since it came out, finally got around it. 13 years late. At least now it's probably super cheap. No, you murder this time. We got it. We got this. This is the wrong. Well, I'm gonna charge up my Guardian Spirit first because I think it's necessary. Necessary. Who's willing to bet? Oh, nobody bet on that shit. Definitely not. There we go. Champion? Is McKinn's there? They battle back? I don't think so. I don't think so. It's all gone pear-shaped. Right, we're charged up and ready to go. Oh, we didn't take any damage there, which is unusual for me. Chin! Look, one of an expensive game. You just suddenly play it like a game set. Goofing off type of game. Ooh, that's such a good idea. Now, just remember, Teddy is only 3. Bluey? He does love a bit of Bluey, doesn't he? Right. Anything else I can equip that's going to help me out here? All enemies. It's not necessarily a weapon of a devastating power is the potent shockwave and shrapnel. Use your weapon with a power. Should I be using this? To give me like fire damage? Shit. And again, shit. Fuck. Ah, she got me. She got me. This wasn't the one. This wasn't the one. So much broke the championship redeem. How do you break it?
You were so filled with your own son of a bitch. You didn't think
I know.
Think to question that maybe you might actually die, and here we are.
It's a stunt game where you can copy someone else and crash the cars and jump ramps.
Just
Nuclear phosphate, what is happening? Game's called Crash Drive 2. Yes. I'd be dead. I can't bet you would just have to settle with driving to your house and beating you. Not doxing, of course. We all know where Flamash lives. He lives in the big house with the yellow light on it. It's a lighthouse. It's not heavy. It's a lighthouse. Oh. Brother, you'll have it this time. No. I'm going to finish up now anyway, because it's 20 past 11, and I kind of have to pee again. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. You can't miss my house, fuck's sake. I know. Other people have tracked you down just because of the outside of your house. Airplay just to guide it on. Combat appears to focus on the MEKI management rather than just health. Utilizing Yeah, that's true. The yokai horns is more for the big kind of glowing enemies. Then getting good. This is true. Is it made of Lego? This is true. Thank you very much, everybody who came on tonight. That was an absolutely stellar stream. Thank you for all the banter. Joffrey, thank you very much for coming on as well and giving me the advice I needed. Great stream. Let me relinquish the title. It's free. It's free. But we're going to be back on Wednesday night. Next week. We'll be back on Wednesday night. We have more Monster Hunter World. And then Thursdays and Saturdays is going to be Nioh again. So looking forward to that. But what we're going to do now is we're going to see which of our cool folks we're going to raid out to. So we're going to let this load up now on the side. I think Mike was streaming earlier on. I don't know if he's still live. If he's still live, we'll raid him. But we'll see what the crack is with. Let me see for a wee second. I know I was on lurking. And he's playing Breath of Fire 3. That's my raid target right there. So there we go. Happy days. So anybody that doesn't know Mike is a lovely fella. And as his name says, he does audio. But he's playing Breath of Fire 3 at the moment and does a lot of speedruns on Final Fantasy 8. So if you could call in and say hello to him, it'd be much appreciated. I'm going to pop a little raid message in there as well. Top one is for followers, bottom one is for subs. We are going to raid out now, and I will be back on Wednesday night. And I will chat to you fine folks then. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.